WellPod at DC on Riot Radio.
From meditation, stress management, safer substance use, and sexual health, we will literally talk sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Join us to dive deep into some student health questions. We'll learn about wellness together, try some coping tools, and meet some interesting people.
Your co-hosts, Heather and Craig.
Perfect blend of Campus Health and Wellness Center and Sal's.
Each week, we'll DIY a wellness tool together.
And then nerd out and dig into the science behind how it works.
Email your health and wellness related questions to wellpod@durhamcollege.ca to be discussed anonymously on air. Welcome to the WellPod at DC.
Welcome to the WellPod at DC, live from the Media Hub here on riotradio.ca. A famous quote from V for Vendetta, Alan Moore's 1982 graphic novel, spoke about how it was my integrity that was important. Is that so selfish? It sells for so little, but it's all we have left in this place. It's the very last inch of us, but within that last inch, we are free. Today, we're going to explore that theory around integrity. And according to Stephen M.R. Covey in his novel, The Speed of Trust, integrity is where there's no gap between intent and behavior, when there are whole, seamless, the same inside and out, which we sometimes refer to as congruence. And it is incongruence, not compliance, that will ultimately create credibility and trust. So today, our student question of the week is, I'm feeling overwhelmed with all my tests and projects. I'm trying to do things on my own, but with everything going on, it's hard not to use AI to help me out. What should I do? So this week, we're going to talk a little bit about leading with integrity and how integrity comes into the classroom in an academic setting. Finally, ending today's show, talking about some AI implications. According to Simon Sinek's novel, Leaders Eat Last, integrity is when our words and deeds are consistent with our intentions. Craig, you talked with one of our leaders here at DC around the topic.
For sure. And that's those couple of quotes before I get into that are really interesting, because that's a theme that came up in terms of meeting with Jean, who I'll introduce in a moment here, and we'll watch a little video. And then in terms of connecting with our guests that will be on later, yeah, just maybe a different way of looking at it, but at the same time, once you say it, seems kind of obvious, right? That it's this connection between I'm doing what I say and it's tied directly to the student's question, right? I have all of this stuff. I want to do that, but
good intentions.
I have good intentions, but maybe it's not quite me. And so, it's really interesting. Yeah. And so that being said, our first guest today is actually a recorded guest. I had the ability to meet with Choi, Durham College's Vice President of Academics, yesterday, and have a quick conversation about, Durham College's mission statement of Together We're Leading the Way, and how that aspect of we're leading the way ties into integrity and how they're woven together.
Wonderful. Yeah. Let's give it a watch.
Too many things are popping up on my screen here. Okay. I think for joining me today to discuss academic integrity, I really appreciate it. I'll start off with telling you something that you already know in terms of DC's mission is Together We're Leading the Way. And so as far as academic integrity goes, I was wondering if you could share how you see integrity woven into that mission of leading the way.
It's one of our values here at Durham College, so it's embedded in all that we do. So we begin with integrity. So whether it be teaching our students in our classrooms, our labs or shops, or perhaps providing them with wraparound supports to support their well-being, both mentally, socially, and physically, and of course, all of this contributing to their academic success.
That aspect of right from the beginning, right? Mm-hmm. Not we'll get there eventually, but that it's upfront right away.
Yes, so we begin with integrity.
As the VP academic at DC, why is integrity important for leadership? And then also thinking for students, why is integrity important as they are here at DC, but also move into leadership roles outside of DC once they graduate?
Oh, I think integrity is important for leadership because we want to hold ourselves and our students, as you know, and who will eventually become our graduates, to those high standards of behavior. So I think we're very privileged to be able to work in higher education, sort of contributing and transforming lives through our courses and our programs. And really, given the privilege, I believe that we do need to model the behaviors and the approaches that reflect those values that we want to develop in our students and that we want them to take with them as they enter the workforce, really displaying those same values in their own leadership approaches. So really possessing the quality of doing what is right and sticking by that value of integrity is sometimes difficult. So ensuring that our students have the confidence and the resolve to make good decisions and act based on those values is something that I believe that our programs and our approaches in supporting and teaching our students are all, they exist. And I think with that, as you've noted, we are contributing to build future leaders so that so I see this as us investing in our students and as well investing in our future and really paying it forward.
That view of it, and something you said there triggered in my mind of the sort of beyond the content of a class, if you will, right? And not just looking forward, or maybe I'll say when you look forward to what are the next steps. Of course, there's the material to know, or these aspects like integrity into that future as well.
Yes, absolutely. For me, I believe that absolutely the content is important. And, we've heard repeatedly, whether we're talking about our industry partners, our community associations, through PACs, through networking events, we do hear repeatedly that yes, the technical knowledge and skills are critical, but just as critical are those durable skills, and those durable skills that are tied to being able to critically evaluate information and critically act in a way that is consistent to the values that I think we all hold here at DC, but that our community associations and our industry partners also hold. So we need to ensure that, again, students not only see that behavior, but also experience it during their time here at DC.
So much for taking the time to meet with me today, Jean. I really appreciate you.
My pleasure.
What a great conversation with Jean. I love how she mentioned this idea around we need to experience it as well. And so it's not just something kind of you learn and then tuck aside, but the importance of seeing it modeled, whether it's a professor, whether it's our staff here, fellow students, the importance of being in an atmosphere where we're able to experience integrity on a daily basis.
Yeah, no, I really agree. Experience it, like you said, to see other people what's the word I'm looking for? But like showing it and then having the practice as you will as well, right? Sometimes we get very like, oh, it's an assignment. It's all about the content, as she mentioned in the video, right?
Yeah.
But it's the whole experience of it's an assignment, but then in addition to that, there's other things to experience and practice, including integrity.
Absolutely. I also like how she spoke that it was a skill that's going to carry with you beyond the classroom, right? Content is one thing, but we learn so much more. And the skill of integrity is something that lifelong is going to carry with you, whether you're in leadership or working for an organization, in your family and relationships. It's something that we can actually transfer into other areas.
For sure, and I think it's something as we go through the show today that we'll see sort of come up again, that it's not just this one thing, and it's not just academic integrity, but it's integrity.
Yeah.
And yes, some of it is tied to academics, but as you said, tied to other areas of our life as well.
Wonderful. Well, after this break, we're going to continue to explore integrity, but more in an academic classroom setting with our special guests, Sandra and Leslie. We'll see you back after this break. Welcome back to the WellPod at DC, live from the Media Hub here on riotradio.ca. Craig, you brought some guests.
That's right. Today, as you mentioned before the break, we have Sandra and Leslie joining us. Sandra is full-time faculty at the college and program coordinator as well. And if I'm getting it correctly, in biomedical technology.
Yep, biomedical engineering technology.
Okay,
pretty
close.
good.
I missed just the one word. And then Leslie is a writing specialist within the Student Academic Learning Services, SALS. Thanks for being here with us today.
Thanks for inviting us.
And a returning crowd favorite. Welcome back, Leslie.
Ooh, I have big shoes to fill.
Yeah. And so, as you know, today we're talking about integrity and academic integrity, but where the two sort of interface, if you will. So I'll start, Sandra, with why is integrity important to you?
Oh, big question. I think I was talking to someone the other day and I said, integrity really goes to your core values and how you want to express yourself and being seen. And as an employee, not just at Durham College, but a person, I value integrity quite a bit. So I try to bring that into my classroom and instill those values because my students are going into healthcare and there's nothing more important than integrity and ethics in healthcare. So,
Yeah, for sure. And that's what we were kind of saying before the break as well, just that it's not just academic integrity assignment and turning in assignments, not that that's not important, but it's that practice, if you will. I think that's how we were saying it, right, for the long term.
It's like looking at a holistic view of what it is and how can I instill integrity with my students and have them take that out into their career. I think it's really important for them to demonstrate that at school and practice in a safe place where they can make mistakes and we can help them get better, and then to take that out into their world later.
Yeah, I love that idea, right? Of let's get messy. It reminds me of Miss Frizzle Magic School Bus, right?
That's me.
Yeah, right. Let's get messy and make mistakes in a safer environment and maybe kind of see where that line of integrity is for some of us, because we don't want to be playing with that line when we're in a healthcare setting, a professional in the community.
No, I'm part of the Academic Integrity Task Force and Committee as well. And I always find when talking to first year students especially, you know, they come here from many, many different places all over the world. And we're very fortunate as a college to be able to host students from all over the world. The difference is whether they're from Oshawa and a different high school or whether they're from another country, academic integrity could mean something very different. So I think it's only fair and kind and educational of us to be able to bring them all to that same platform and know the expectations. One example is when I have students make a mistake on their first assignment of the semester, I'll say, hey, you have until midnight to go back, review your APA format, look at your citations, and this is how you should do it, and hand it in again. And it gives them a sense of, oh, wow, she gave us a second chance. It actually happened today with a student. So it gives them a sense that they're human and they're allowed to be human and they're allowed to make mistakes and they can grow from them.
And what a beautiful demonstration of integrity that you are helping provide the actions and the pathways. So if you believe that it's okay to make mistakes as long as we maybe learn together and find a way to solve this, you're also allowing them the opportunity to learn and get messy. So you're practicing what you're preaching.
Oh, well, that's good. That's what I want to do.
Check. And Leslie, I know you spoke very highly of academic integrity last time that you were here as well. Maybe similar question that was just answered by Sandra. Why is it so important for you, academic integrity?
Well, I think Sandra already mentioned this, but we're preparing students for beyond school. And so it's academic integrity, but it's also integrity. And it's the approach that you take to your work, the approach that you take to yourself even, other people, whether it's working in a group, whether it's working on your own, making sure that you're asking for help if you need it. That's what we're all here for. Making sure that they understand what the expectations are. So we have different resources available to students to learn about it sort of proactively. And professors talk about it in class, and Sandra's a great example of that, where students, if they understand what's expected, and they can think about how it relates to them. So a big focus, it's not like a punitive approach. When I'm working with students, it's let's think about what integrity means to you. What is the relationship? What is it that we talk about when it's, your responsibility and feeling pride in the work that you do? And when students see it that way, when I'm doing a workshop with students and I'll say, so what did you learn? I learned I have to be responsible for myself. I learned that I should be proud of my work. I learned that I need to ask for help if I'm not sure. So all of those skills and those qualities, that's going to help them in school and beyond. So.
It moves beyond the content of just learning APA citation, but really learning what this means as a core value.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've even learned in preparing for this because working in SALS, we talk about academic integrity. We work alongside each other, but it was as we prepared, getting, even for myself, that idea, well, it's actually integrity. And then there's one small, maybe not small, but one part of it is academic integrity, right? Where sometimes it can be, maybe from a student standpoint of, okay, yeah, they're going to tell me about this academic stuff and that I shouldn't cheat, and maybe a more negative, they might have that in their mind, but it's like, no, it's about developing you as an individual who has integrity.
Yeah, it also helps students mentor each other. So when I have assignments and they have to do group work, I came up with an idea to have them cite each of their own paragraphs. But if they hand it in as a group, they also have to review the whole document. So it helps them help each other as well. Another thing I do is I ask them to do the academic integrity module at SALS, which is an excellent way to help them get on the same kind of groundwork, ground platform, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's really good. And the aspect, and you've said it and Jean said it, but the right from the beginning, as opposed to, that's just sticking out to me. Not that I'm saying anything deep here, but just, not keeping you guessing of how this works or anything, but day one, we're talking about it.
Right. Nobody wants to go to the dean's office and be sitting there telling people why they committed an academic integrity infraction. So if you can avoid that for many, many, many students, that's a little success they have starting school.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. So you've kind of answered the second question I was going to ask about how you promote and support students, and I'll skip to the next one. Do you ever hear then about students as we're talking about they graduate and it's about setting them up for success? Do you ever have students come back in terms of sharing about this?
I invite students or alumni back every year to talk to undergrads, and one of the things that they really talk clearly and emphatically about is integrity and ethics. And working in healthcare, our biomedical engineering technology program, our students go in and fix equipment that can save lives. If they don't have integrity in the classroom, then would you want your grandmother on a ventilator that they serviced when they're out in the workforce? So I flip it around and say, hey, if your grandma needs to go on that device, let's make sure we know how to tick all the boxes and do everything right, so we're doing that same thing in our job. And the people who come in to visit boast about that same, I guess, work ethic that they have, and how it makes a difference. And it makes a difference to their whole community, not just themselves.
No shortcuts, right? They're
Right,
doing it.
yeah.
They're doing it properly, correctly.
Yeah.
Following the rules, paying attention to
Yeah.
detail, and being proud of the work they do,
For sure.
so that people are safe.
And I would imagine this deeper understanding, moving away just from kind of, as you said, essays and making sure you're not taking from other people, but understanding this on a deeper level, then when we are in the community and we're working, it's maybe easier for them to have that change of perspective of, if I'm not sure what to do, don't just make it up, don't just kind of, bypass it.
Yeah.
Because I've learned that it was okay to make mistakes and it's okay to reach out and ask for help. So I loved that both of you spoke about those pillars of, it's not just kind of the learning, but also reaching out if you're unsure, making sure that you're clear on the expectations that are being asked of you.
Yeah, and I guess us setting an example in the classroom. I have a good relationship with most of my students, and we have small classes. So setting that example that this is where I want to be, and this is where I've come, is maybe a good incentive for them. Not that they're going to follow the same path, but the same successful path that our alumni have who come in and talk.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah. I was going to actually post maybe that second question to you, Leslie, in terms of Sal's role in promoting and supporting students with academic integrity. Like, what kind of resources would you like to speak to in terms of ones that are available through Sal's?
Very topical question. In fact, next week is Academic Integrity Awareness Week at the college, and we're doing, with your assistance, a social media campaign promoting awareness. There's going to be a contest that is happening through SALS and through DCSA as well. Chance to win an iPad.
Ooh.
So yes, that's impressive. And what we're doing is we're trying to let people know about the resources that are available, and to do a bit of a digital scavenger hunt where they have to explore what's available to them and learn more about academic integrity, the resources there to support them, and then they can enter into this contest. And that's leading up to something called International Day of Action for Academic Integrity, which is on October 16th. And we'll have events at Whitby and Oshawa. And it's just a way to not make academic integrity scary. It's to make it so that it's part of the conversation, that we're building a positive culture of academic and other integrity at the college, and so that people have these good conversations and that we're all on the same page.
Sure.
Wonderful. Where can I find out more about all these great events and that iPad?
Okay, so follow SALS, DC_SALS on Instagram. And then if people go on to my DC, the learning resources, they can access the contest there. And we're going to have signage around, digital signage, and definitely coming to the pit on the 16th or the Whitby campus in the atrium. And we'll have QR codes. People can scan it, do the scavenger hunt. And yeah, the iPad's a pretty sweet prize.
Very much. Well, thank you for being part of the conversation
you.
to make this, again,
welcome.
less scary and less, I'm doing something wrong, but looking at the positive and the future aspect, if you will, of integrity in careers, even post DC.
Sure, always happy to. Thanks for inviting us.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you
us.
very much.
After this quick break, we're going to continue to explore the intersection of integrity, but now with the AI world, with our special guest, Corey Gill. See you back after the break. Welcome back to the WellPod at DC, live from the Media Hub here on riotradio.ca. Craig, you brought some more guests.
I did. We welcome Corey Gill to the studio today to talk to us a little bit about, as you said before the break, AI and integrity, academic integrity specifically. Corey, you're full-time faculty with business, but then also the CTL. I'm not going to lie, I didn't really get the title, so I just put AI specialist. The person who knows everything AI, I'll just build it up like that.
I wouldn't even go with the person who knows everything AI, but I'm one of the two consultants that work with the CTL and try and help the faculty better understand how AI can either complement their course or help them with their own workload.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here today to discuss AI with us and that overlap with academic integrity. So I'll start with the first question. How do you find, or what role technology plays overall in terms of supporting or challenging the institutional policies around academic integrity?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's interesting because AI is constantly evolving, and as it evolves, it challenges us institutionally to keep the policies kind of in check. And the interesting thing is now we have this cat and mouse almost happening where we use AI embedded in academic integrity tools to check academic integrity. But in doing that, we actually intelligently help AI get a better understanding of how to identify itself and therefore hide itself in the future. And it's an interesting kind of game that goes on where academic integrity becomes more challenging and the policies become more difficult to actually maintain, transform, communicate, because the AI thinks faster than we do.
Yeah, that's always funny to think that, the computer, not that it's that simple, but is evolving faster than maybe we can.
Absolutely, and interestingly enough, it learns from itself really well, just like we do, and we learn just as quick. But what it will do now is apply that faster to what it's done in the past than we normally would. We have to go through kind of the process of trying it out. It doesn't. It just kind of starts applying it and learns every time it applies it, makes it a little bit better, a little bit faster, a little bit stronger, and that makes us as people. We have to look at it, figure out how to reformat the policies because it's not writing the policies, we are. And so we still use it to help write the policies, but it continues, and it's this never-ending circle of
keep up.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect.
So in terms of ed tech tools, maybe beyond AI or including AI, how do you find them being impacted by this? By AI and its uses. Yeah,
and that's great because ed tech is something we use in the classroom. Everybody has kind of brought it in. Something as simple as a Kahoot. And AI has been this great empowerment to say, hey, when we're doing a Kahoot now, back in the old days, you have to, what am I going to use as a question, type it all. Now you can actually load a PowerPoint in that you've built or load a set of outline structure that you've built, and it will automatically put the Kahoot together. So it automates the mundane tasks, takes away some of the problems, but in doing that, it also kind of generates more knowledge about the topics that you're sharing, which means when students start accessing a similar AI platform, especially now with chat AIs, ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot, that becomes common knowledge all in the open AI source, and all this information, all these questions that we've uploaded, it now has the answers to.
Yeah.
And
makes me reflect as an educator. You speak about it kind of taking away some of those mundane tasks, more administrative tasks. But if I think about taking the time to think about what questions I wanted to have and like the Kahoots and all the things, interesting to think about it from the flip side when our students are using AI to maybe what they think is mundane and the tasks that they don't necessarily want to do. You mentioned this earlier. It's kind of interesting to reflect on as a institution, as educators, how we are using AI and would we allow our students perhaps to use the tools in similar ways? So I love that you brought that conversation forward earlier of like, this is an interesting back and forth we're having. We're trying to learn how to use it in ethical ways, and then we're trying to teach our students how to use it in ethical ways, and how do we balance that? Because I know some of my students even asked if I was using AI to help grade their papers. So they're like, you told us we couldn't use AI to write our papers, but are you using AI to grade our papers? And so I think this is a really interesting conversation. from an equitable standpoint.
This is why I like it even in the CTL role itself, right? Because I use it in my professor role, and it makes it very much more efficient, much more productive in class design and so forth. But in the CTL role, in the Gen AI consultant role, it's different depending who we're working with, right? So, and I still reflect back, we had a PD day back in the spring where liberal studies was there, and you realize, hey, AI will actually write a complete essay for somebody and use really good grammar. But that's not always what you need or what you want. So you got to start reimagining how you use your assignments to get the information across, knowing full well that AI could jeopardize the way you do it. And it creates a bit of a conundrum there, right? So the ed tech tools like Grammarly or Quillbot, they take away some of the educational institution we built around grammar, around the English language, around essay writing and whatnot. And it really challenges us to reimagine how to teach our subject, test our subject, assess our subject with this new level of beautifully written, very hard to detect robotic speech.
And it's interesting, the balance too of, as you were saying before, coming up with policy, trying to keep up and so on, but also making students aware when it is good to use. And this goes to what you're saying. I actually interacted with a student today over in Sal's that asked me about using AI, but what they were doing was getting it to ask them questions to study for their test, which I was sitting there like, what a great idea. That's an awesome, but they said, am I allowed to do that? And it's like, but you're at home, this is not you're turning anything in, you're not, you know, but sometimes keeping up with the policies, we can be focused on the no, and then maybe it's limiting a tool.
Absolutely, because individualized learning experience is one of the benefit of AI that we can use in the classroom. But as you point out, or not even the classroom, in our programs in the institution itself. And as you point out, though, keeping a policy around that is a little bit harder, because some you don't want them to use it at home because it actually undermines the learning. I go back again to language, right? It really undermines your development of language if it does all the language work for you, even at home. Whereas concept application, I'm less worried about how much you can retain, and if you wanted to use it as a trigger point to remember how to apply a concept, I think it's a great idea. And I'd almost be happy with that in the classroom, even not just studying at home. So it's a fine line. So
I'm noticing too that individuals are finding it to help. We talk about health and wellness often on the show. So we're seeing it being applied in other areas outside of learning. But today we're talking about integrity. And so one thing that I'm very curious about, as you mentioned, is how much are we still learning and growing as we're using some of these tools? Where does that line for values kind of come into play? Is that something I would imagine CTL is kind of constantly kind of reflecting on, is how do we keep AI maybe as a learning tool, a buddy with us in our learning, but the ethics behind it? I'm constantly, anytime I see anything with AI, it seems like the ethics behind AI is kind of constantly evolving and trying to, as you said, keep up.
Well, the interesting thing about AI is it's much like people. It's unfortunately, if it gets flustered or frustrated, it can have a different personality every time you start it. So.
I talk very kindly to my chat GPT.
And you're supposed to. That is the best way to do it. But even then, you can have a bad morning, even with chat GPT or Copilot. And it might tell you the wrong stuff. It might have biases built into it. It might have inappropriate decisions kind of, or untruths or lack of truths kind of built into it. Even as it gets smarter, it goes down that path, right? So that ethical consideration comes in there, where we do need to make sure the assignments that we're doing, we do need to make sure that the challenges we're putting to our students include that critical aspect of validating information, verifying information, and that our policies kind of reinstate that, hey, you know what, like, even if you think they've done something with AI, maybe having them tell you what they've done to validate what they've submitted that you think might be AI is an easy way to see if they've got the knowledge base, the ethical base, the educational base to drive the information that you have, and at which point you realize they just used it to make it sound better.
Yeah.
To me, that's value, right?
Yeah.
But it's really hard to discern.
Really hard. I had somebody once say to me, we talk about hallucinations sometimes with AI and some of the lies that are generated. And when we talk about integrity, we're talking today and last season as well about it being kind of a human virtue. And as you mentioned, this is not a human tool necessarily. And so how integritous can AI be when it's not human? So it doesn't have a lot of our human morals. I think will be really interesting to see in the future.
I love that you brought that up. I always kind of, and I don't know if I could pop a book on here or anything like that, but we go back a couple of years during academic kickoff. We brought in Henning Beck. He did a book called Scatterbrain. I always kind of liked that one. But one thing that stuck with me is he says, like, we're dysfunctional as people, and that's what makes us stronger than AI. And AI is very functional. And so, to your point, AI will continue on a path and will not deviate from that path because that's what it's thinking. So you can fact check it, you can justify it, you can create it to cause it to check itself, and so. But individually, we have the ability now to take left turns, right turns, change our value system as we go, and that is one of the benefits too. One of the ways we can actually use academic integrity policies is using that dysfunction of human. Of the human, I guess, to fact check the function of AI. So I find that's always stuck in my head. The more I do with AI, the more I think about what Henning Beck said there. So
It's brilliant.
It's interesting what you were saying about the hallucinations and the bias depending on your mood, because I sat in on one of your sessions about AI the other day, and I had never thought about it, but you're like, clear the history and then ask another question, and you were always very polite. Thank you for your great response. And so I never really thought about that, but getting rid of the history before I ask other questions to avoid bias and so on was very interesting to me.
you'll also see it acts up. I tried to do something and it didn't work. On that, I remember that session. It didn't work, and I'm like, it's funny. A half hour ago, it was working.
Yeah.
But I hit the reset button and I lost that personality, and I got the personality that didn't understand what I
Or
was saying.
maybe you said too many rude things to it and then it didn't want to answer your question. So big picture, I was going to ask you about like principles for using AI and how that overlaps with what we're talking about here, integrity or otherwise. Is there any?
Yeah, it's funny. I put a lot of ideas into this kind of stuff. I don't want to be a cheesy person that comes up with another acronym, but I try and get it so that people can think about it, because it's complex, right? When we start thinking, hey, am I using it properly? Is there a way I can validate that I'm using it properly? And so I came up with the dorky title check. Right. So if we can sit there and say, hey, you want to know how if you're going to be able to use AI properly, if you're going to be able to use it with integrity, with academic honesty in check, and that's kind of where it starts with that. If we just think about the acronym down, we start with consent, right? And so consent means ask, don't assume. Hey, prof, can I use AI? Not just in this class, but on this assignment or whatnot. CTL says some great language, says, you can always use it. You can sometimes use it. You can never use it. But that still doesn't undo that consent, right? Go ahead and ask. And once you've done that, you've kind of cleared the air. Because not every assignment is the same. So let's ask. Move on to H. H is honesty. If you did use it, admit it. So even though I gave you consent, you're not always going to use it. And I like that, because the statistics were showing that professors think more people are cheating now than they've ever cheated before, and they attribute a lot of this to AI. I believe it was Wiley's survey done maybe in the spring or last fall. I can't remember the exact timeline. They said it was believed over 90% of students are using AI in some fashion on the assignments, whether they're allowed to or not. But when they sampled the base, 45% of students were actually using it, or less than 45%. So you're finding that this distrust, this misuse, this misinterpretation of how it's being done is impacting us. And that comes from that honesty fashion where, okay, even if they said you can use it, I didn't. Or I did. Right? And part of that goes into the E, which is evaluate. So if you're going to use it, you're going to admit you're going to ask to use it, make sure the information you're getting is not full of bias. Make sure that it's accurate. When it gives you fact check references, make sure those references are valued. One of the more famous urban myths, but it's a realistic myth. I just don't know where it originates from. I think New York, but a lawyer built the entire set of case for a legal trial based on ChatGPT's outputs, and the judge tweaked and went, wait a second. I don't think that case exists. And he paused the court, looked into it, and sure enough, that lawyer was penalized. And I don't think disbarred or anything like that, but certainly chastised for it. And they didn't do their due diligence. And so we have to do our due diligence. Is it right? Is it right for me? Does it align with my opinion? And are the facts accurate? And if I agree with all that, that moves me to the next C where I'm going to cite it, just like I cite any other source. Because ultimately AI becomes a source, right? And people go, well, I don't know how to cite it. Well, there's kind of 3 ways to check, right? The internet, right? Yeah, I want an APA, it'll tell you this is the usual standard, MLS, the usual standard. There's always the library, and people forget libraries exist, and libraries are really good at now bringing virtualization into the classroom or into your assessments and making sure that you know how to do things. So online, in library and tools that go around that kind of stuff, great. Or talk to your professor. Because as I speak around the college, I find a lot of people are like, yeah, I really don't care how they do it. I just want to, I want to see that they did it. I'd like to see some of the prompts they use and the exchanges. And so sometimes the professor wants more information and some want less. My history there all the time with citation is keep your history. This way, if you have to validate what you've done, you have the ability to pull it out. So that takes us to the K. It goes back to what Heather said earlier, referenced earlier in the conversations we've been having, and that is knowledge, right? So everything needs to be able to be supported by your own original idea. So no matter what you've put out there, in essence, if someone comes to you and says, tell me about the paper, you got to be able to prove it's your own original work, that you curated the information that's in there, that you understand what you said, that you understand the point, and that if you articulate it your way, it aligns with the way AI might have articulated it in your final product. So that's why I say kind of dorky or whatnot, but if you can think about checking your work, you'll be there.
For sure. Do you have posters for it yet?
Not yet. No.
Because I was going to say social media later will start spreading the word.
I'll have to work on that. But it kind of, I'll be honest, I was thinking about how do I say it right here? And I had those concepts in a different way. And I used AI to help me come up with a better acronym.
There you go.
I'm glad you cited it.
Because, COPET wasn't very good, right? So.
And that the whole idea of your CHECK acronym really reminds me of what Jean was mentioning earlier around a lot of components of integrity has to do with critical thinking and engaging in critical thinking. And so I find your acronym really aligns with that really well, especially like the evaluate and citation, right? We're really hoping our students are acting with integrity. And what I think we mean by that is building their critical thinking. So whether you're using AI or talking with a fellow human, you're engaging in kind of that feedback loop of, like you said, that almost consensual, is this okay to do? Is this right? Is this the direction I'm going on? What am I learning? What's my education here? My knowledge, as your acronym highlighted. So great way to remember it.
And beyond the just asking, can I do this? And then go ahead and do it, right?
Yeah.
Ask it. And then the critical thinking is, can I? Let me check.
Yeah.
If you think back at time when the internet first came out, like not every company said, yeah, go ahead and use it, right? So you had to check with the company policies and say, can I use the internet to research this kind of stuff? Oh, I don't want that information out there. Some emails could go out, some couldn't, and it evolves over time. AI is doing the exact same thing, right? And it'll happen in education. And the reality is academic integrity needs to evolve to the point where AI becomes part of the course curriculum because they're going to need it in work. Every student that comes through here, every faculty member that is helping these students is going to embrace AI to either make their work more, let's say, productive, and make the students more efficient when they hit the work world, where everybody around them is going to be using AI to make their work world more productive. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. And I'm going to stick to AI. What did I say? Specialist, knows all things AI, as I said.
We'll just go with that guru.
Yeah, guru. There you go. No. There you go. No, thank you so much for joining us and chatting about AI with us today and academic integrity.
Thank you very much for having me. It was great.
To loop back to our student question of the week as well, the question, is this a good thing to be using AI? Remembering that CHECK acronym, but also remembering that integrity is linked to our overall health and well-being. So there are a lot of studies that link integrity and living with strong moral character with a reduced risk for depression, anxiety, and cardiovascular disease as well. So being an integritous student may not just be good for your academics, but also good for your health. It's the end of our show today. Next week, we're going to be talking about sex. So that's not let STIs go boo, and spook us. That's reduce the spook of sex. You can find some of the books and some of the tools mentioned on today's episode on our Instagram account at wellness@DC. And don't forget, you can follow the Media Hub on social media at DCSA Media Hub. Thanks for exploring what it means to be well with us today, and we'll see you next week right here from the Media Hub live on riotradio.ca.